Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters, and welcome to our Father's Day special. Yes, this is something Luke and I have been tossing around for a little bit now. We're going to try to do this every Father's Day, just give a little bit of representation, because obviously, if you've been watching our channel for a minute, we can't stop talking about it. We are dads. We each have a little one. My son is only about 2. Ella's about a year old, so, it's we're still on the younger side of fatherhood, but we figured we would bring some other horror content creators who are also dads in and of themselves. So we have the great, obviously returning Ken Sledge on the channel here. Ken, how you doing?
What's up? Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. And making his Splattercast debut, the great Cody Leach joining us. What an honor, sir. Thanks for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for the invite.
Awesome. And yeah, so we were kind of chit-chatting just for a second there before I hit the record button about how, there isn't a lot of horror representation as far as Father's Day goes. We have our horror movies like Mother's Day and stuff. The only thing I can really think of is the little short in Creepshow for Father's Day. But instead of just covering Creepshow or just that one short, I was like, just have a conversation. Let's just talk about what it's like being dads who, enjoy horror and then just enjoy movies in general, and kind of what those experiences have been like, when you have a son or a daughter and it's like you get to show them movies for the first time. What are movies you're excited to show them? And really just kind of shoot the shit. So to kind of kick things off, I think just in general, we'll kind of go down. So we'll start with Ken and then go to Cody, Luke, and myself. And I want to ask you guys, starting with Ken, of course, what is the first horror film that you showed your kids? What was like the first, this is the one I got to sit down and do it? Or was it one that just happened to be on and you just ended up throwing it on and that was the first horror film?
Well, with my son, it was Saw. And it was totally accidental. That was like a total, I was watching it and him and his friend were there and I didn't think they were really paying attention, and it caught his eye and he fell in love with it. We ended up watching Saw 1 through, I think it was 6 at the time, all back to back. And then I've always felt like as long as you can educate your kids on what they're watching and the fact that it's not real, and I've said this on our show a couple times, I feel like it grounds children more in reality to watch horror, as long as they're into it. You're not forcing it on them. And then my middle child was Goosebumps. We took her to the theater to watch Goosebumps, and that was extreme. She was like, nope, I don't like it. She's just recently started to come around. We took her to see Abigail, The Strangers, Tarot, and she's really coming around to it. And then my youngest, Halloween. She actually started with the They Talk segment on Dead Meat. She loved They Talk. The Friday the 13th Part 3 episode, and then we went from that to Halloween, and she's been smitten ever since.
There you go. That's a good list. I like that. Cody, what was the first horror film that you sat down with your kids and watched?
So I got a couple different answers. Obviously for all three of my different kids, but when I met my wife, my 2 oldest children were already in the picture, and one was 7, one was 4. The 7-year-old was convinced that he was too scared to watch horror films. And so I was like, we'll see about that. So there was one night where I technically the first one I showed him was Poltergeist, because I figured it was going to be tame enough. And then about 10 minutes into the movie, my wife wanted us to go have alone time. So I was like, they're good. We'll leave the kids here. And then maybe 10 minutes later, they're knocking on the door like, this movie's freaky. And I'm like, fine, we'll test something else. So
10 minutes, you're a god.
I'm telling you.
There you go.
So anyway, the first movie that I actually sat down and watched the whole thing with my son when he was like 7 or maybe even 8 was Fright Night, because I figured it was fun enough to where the scary stuff would be balanced out. And when I knew it was going to get intense, I would just crack a joke to kind of break the tension. And so that was his. My youngest daughter, or my middle daughter, took to horror much quicker than he did. I think she wanted something to bond with me over. So I was getting ready to throw on A Nightmare on Elm Street, and she just curled up with me on the couch and watched it. And then my youngest, I was doing a Scream review series when the 5th one came out a couple of years ago, and she just kind of found her way in the living room while Scream was playing, and then that was it. I didn't even plan on showing it to her, but after she just saw it they put this kind of shit in movies. Like, she was hooked. She wanted to watch all the Screams, all the Chuckies, all the Nightmare on Elm Streets, and so that's my path with all three of them.
Oh, I love that. That's such a good like dichotomy between the both of you of like all the different kinds of horror that you can expose your kids to. I mean, you've got like your gateway horrors like Goosebumps, and then I would say Poltergeist, very much a gateway horror, at least for me. Like I started off with things like at a very young age watching films like Jaws, because I was always a creature feature fan. Like, my son is taken after me. He loves sharks. He loves Jurassic Park, you know. So I imagine that those are going to kind of be some of the, when he really can start getting into it, those are going to be some of the big ones. But Luke, have you sat down with your daughter and shown her anything just yet that we haven't told the audience about?
Nothing that we haven't told the audience about. I think I shared it with Ken when we did my first horror movie, just in random discussion.
December, I think it was.
Yeah. You know, she's way too young to really absorb anything at this moment, but you know, we had just kind of reignited the podcast and everything, and Ella's birthday is November 3rd, and of course Dylan had the bright idea of, hey, let's cover Thanksgiving for Thanksgiving, and I had never seen it, so I was totally new to me. I didn't even know what going into expect with that film, but you know, of course we're only weeks into Ella being here, and of course everyone knows how it goes. You're not sleeping, you're changing diapers, you're warming up bottles, you know, all the whole shebang. And I still have to watch this killer turkey movie. So my wife goes and takes a nap, and I'm like, well, I could probably fit this in right now. It's a short film. And Ella doesn't care about anything at that time, you know, not really paying attention. She's staring at the ceiling fan half the time. But then as soon as this killer turkey pops up, her eyes locked in on the actual film and actually held her attention. I was so amazed, because I was like, okay, in the spectrum of horror, this is now what I have to tell everybody, is that you locked in on the Thanksgiving movie. So that's the first one. I'm really excited, you know, as she starts absorbing everything to really get into that gateway horror. But hey, her first film is a killer turkey movie.
Love that.
And her first words were "nice tits, bitch." It was
I got her a onesie.
There you go. I'm really honored to have contributed to that, because that was a movie I discovered in high school on Netflix streaming, and like that was something that was just a wild movie, and I love showing that to people. So the fact that that can be technically Ella's first horror film, that's a win for Uncle Dylan there. But for myself, it's I think I said this on one of our last live streams, but for those of you who didn't tune into that, it was actually the 2022 Texas Chainsaw Massacre. My son was born in February 14th. He's a Valentine's Day baby. And we came home a couple days after that. And I'm just sitting in a recliner. He's just like sleeping on my chest. And I was like, well, shit, this is out now. I got to check this out. I love Texas Chainsaw. You know, we've got some duds. Let's see how this one pans out. I wasn't the biggest fan of it, but he was there. And I remember just giving him a bottle, and he's just sitting there kind of taking in the world and everything. And so in all technicality, that's what his first horror film was. But since then, he's, again, like I said, he's become a big creature feature guy. We're watching all kinds of stuff like Jaws, Jurassic Park. You know, I've put those on in the background. He really got locked into, taking from my own heart, Jaws 2 for a little bit there, because I adore Jaws 2. But when the scene where they're diving for lobsters and the shark with the burned face comes right by the camera, I just remember him a couple weeks ago just being like, shark, like stuff like that. So he's just like, yeah, really got into it. So that's a good list there. Definitely love all of those. And now kind of the next piece of this that I really wanted to touch on was what are films that maybe you and your parental figures, whether that be, of course, you know, obviously it's Father's Day, but whether you have a father, don't, you know, it's a mother, an uncle, whoever your big parental guiding figure is, what is something that like bonded you with that, or you guys bonded over? What's a film that was like, this is something that I shared, it'll always be a core memory of mine, whether it's horror or not? I'm kind of opening it up. So starting with you, Ken.
I'm gonna love this one. So this movie will always have a soft spot with me, just because my mom and dad, growing up, they owned a video store, and so I lived with my aunt and my uncle essentially all summer. Like, that was our summer camp. and my Aunt Dawn and Uncle Dave and all the nieces and nephews and their kids would be there. That was our whole summer. And my Uncle Dave was like, "Hey, I'm going to take you all you boys out to see a scary movie today," and he took us out to see Freddy's Dead in 3D. And I'm like, the movie came out in 91, 92, so I'm 5, 6 years old. But I remember it was the coolest shit in the world because I got to watch it in 3D. And even like the playing with power shit. I was huge in the Nintendo. So to me, like as a child, it was awesome. Like you go back and watch this movie now and it's it's a pile of dog shit. But I just remember me, my Uncle Dave, Josh, Nick, Mike, Al, like we're all watching this movie. And we went home and my Uncle Dave was like, "Never, ever again will I ever take these fucking boys to see any movie ever." Yeah, it was just one of those ones that that movie will always have like the special nostalgic piece for me, just because like that was my hero growing up, was my Uncle Dave. Like he was like the dad to all of us, and he took us he showed us Tales from the Hood or Tales from the Crypt for the first time, and all the stuff that I did over the summer, especially I lived with them. So to be able to always look back at that movie and be like, yeah, I went with my Uncle Dave and watched this movie with him in 3D with the big the Freddy 3D glasses. It was really cool. So that's a memory that I'll always have of being young and spending time with my uncle and all my cousins and watching a dog shit movie that was hilarious to a 6-year-old.
Hey, when you're that young, man, I think that like anything like that could be special, because like I was super excited for the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street. Now I'm a younger kid, but I'm just getting into slashers. I dressed up as Freddy Krueger on a Saturday at 2:00 in the afternoon. My dad, my poor father, had to walk me into the theater like that, where I it wasn't like I bought a costume or did the whole thing. I made a glove out of pop cans and like an old hedge clippings glove, and I like took a green sweater and I took red tape and I made the stripes. So like I was looking pretty rough, but my dad, God love him, he took me there, and I was getting a little nervous walking in there, and I was just like, man, I don't know, I should probably take all this off. And he's like, no, you're a kid. He's like, enjoy this. We're going to go have fun. So like, love my dad for that. So that was a formative memory of mine with Freddy, of course. But Cody, what's a formative film for you and your dad there?
I could do an entire live stream on this topic. I mean, my dad got me into movies, music. I mean, most of my movie reviews on my channel at some point say, me and my dad watched this. So there's not one specific memory. I mean, like there's certain movies that we bond over every year because they're like traditional movies for us to watch. Like if we're not in the same room on Thanksgiving, at some point one of us will text the other a picture of us watching Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Same thing with Die Hard and The Ref on Christmas. We really bond heavily over like hidden gem movies that we kind of feel like we're the only people on earth that know them, even though we're not. Movies like Judgment Night and Death Sentence, and like those old gritty kind of action thrillers and classic comedies. I mean, there's memories that I have where, like, as a kid, things were a little rough, so movies were always my escape. And times where me and dad went off when it was just me and him and went to the movies, those were always like my favorite days. Yeah. So like I have distinct memories of going to see like Jumanji with Robin Williams, and my dad being like, oh, fucking kids movie, whatever. And then we see the movie and we walk out and he's like, that was awesome. And so just so much memories like that like my dad's the reason why I'm here, physically, literally, course, yeah. But also as a movie fan.
What I love about that is you're right. Like there's a lot of times, even us as fathers, we go into a movie to watch with our kids and we come out like, that was dope. Like, yeah. that was me with Coco. I was like, yeah, whatever. And then I came out and I was like, that movie fucking blew me away. So it's cool, like, to see that time jump and us having the same emotions with our kids. Yeah. Like that your dad had with you. Like that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm just now kind of circling the barrel on just we're going to take Atticus to go see a movie soon. We're thinking it's going to be Inside Out too, because he loves the first one. We watch it at home all the time. But I was really just kind of sitting there like, maybe King Kong versus Godzilla, the new Empire. I was like, Maybe that, because he loves that. Like, he's got all the toys. He's smacking them around all the time. But I just was like, I just don't know. I think like there's not enough monster action throughout in the entire film. Like, there's just that whole opening, the first like 20 minutes. I'm like, he'd be trying to run around the movie theater right now, and I don't know if I can do that. He's not ready for that.
The
So
cool thing with me that I hope my son values these memories as much as I do. I don't know if he does. Kids nowadays don't seem to value movies as much as some of our generation, but whenever before I came along, he basically was just exposed to Disney movies because that's all my wife watched. And so whenever we got together and moved in and everything like that, and instant dad, I would literally just like give him homework assignments. Like, he'd be bored and I would just go to my shelf and be like, here's the Star Wars trilogy, go. And then here's Indiana Jones. And so there was so many times where he would just take a classic, go in his room, watch it, and he would come out with like this look like, that was awesome. And I'm like, cool, what's next? And then just grab something else.
I love that. I've been on the receiving end of that. That was like a lot of my dad with VHS tapes. He would just be like, we had this huge VHS collection, and he would give me stuff and be like, have you seen this yet? Here, go watch this, or we'll watch this together. So Luke, what's a formative film for you and your father back in the day? What is the one film or multiple films that connected with you guys?
Yeah, I don't know if I have just one specifically. Just remembering childhood, we all have those images, and the way the kind of parenting workflow we had was, my dad worked during the day and my mom worked at night. So my dad was mostly there, after school. He would watch you until you went to bed. So I always have this image of him. I would sit on the floor right in front of the TV and watch TV. And looking back at him, he already, had a specific chair that he would sit in, and always reading a Stephen King book, whether it was Dark Tower series, The Shining, anything like that. And so, I would say the entire Stephen King kind of catalog there was always playing in my house. Carrie always, and it would be like, hey, is that the guy from Look Who's Talking? What is he doing? But so it was like, that Christine, I had a big love for Christine as a kid, terrified at Plymouth Furies, but Cujo, and I would say probably one that seemed to always pop up at night was the television series It. I was like, I can't escape this clown. Always on TV, and it's always one of those childhood memories, your fear of clowns. So, my dad really got me into just the Stephen King element of horror. And hey, I just picked up the new Stephen King book, so I'm kind of trying to get through that book so that I can talk to him about it, because I know he has it as well. So it's just kind of, I think Stephen King was always his guy in terms of authors, and that kind of just bled over to me because, as soon as I got old enough to really just be like, hey, I'm watching horror, I ran through everything Stephen King first, just because, hey, master of horror, you can't escape it. So I'd say, even The Running Man, Schwarzenegger in a onesie, you can't beat it. So I'd say anything Stephen King, my dad had it covered.
I love it. I love that. For me, I have a few. Obviously, like I said earlier, Jaws was one, but my dad showed me everything growing up. But like, the one that I can say without a doubt was really special to me and always sticks out as my favorite horror film, which is The Thing. It was we had DirecTV growing up. They'd always have this like Fox movie channel where the movies were like relatively uncut. It wasn't like HBO or anything like premium, but like they got away with a little bit more. And like, it was probably like close to midnight that comes on the television, and my dad's like, you will love this, you should sit down and watch it. He falls asleep because it's like Friday night. He just did a 12-hour shift. He's passed out, and I'm just like, yeah, it's cool, Dad, I'll watch this with you and stuff. And I just got transported. I was like, oh my God, what a film. Like, I can't even believe they're doing this right now. Like, these computer generated effects are crazy. And then he wakes up the next day, he's just like, no, that's all real. I'm like, what do you mean that's all real? He's like, no, like they used like practical effects and stuff. And I was like, oh wow, so like none of that was CGI? He's like, no, none of that's CGI. I'm like, this whole movie is insane. And that it just became my favorite horror film. And yeah, it's like I just always will think about how special that moment was of just him introducing that, even though he was asleep on the couch. So it's one of those things that always sticks with me. And I love all those picks that you guys gave. I think that's a very special kind of bonding moment with a parental figure, when you can sit down and just enjoy cinema or entertainment in general. Because I think that's like one of the big things that is a huge perk and a bonus to, you know, being a parent is you get to pass along knowledge or pass along things through the generations. Like, I think the one side of this that I want to touch on next is, do you guys think there's like a specific age that you should introduce, whether it be horror or R-rated films, to your kids? Is there something, or are you guys more just kind of, I will let my child decide, I'll go with the flow on that? Because that's very much how my dad was. He kind of let me dictate when he thought that I was ready to see something. So, Ken, was there ever a specific age or any guideline you want to give to anybody to say, this is when you should be introducing this stuff?
No. Every child's different. You know, my middle child's on the spectrum. And so, like, it's just like, you can't, just like there's no book on parenting. You know, there's no, this is what you do, this is how you parent, this is the only way to parent. I feel like it's that even with every single kid, I parent each of my children differently. My 16-year-old son gets parented a whole lot different than my 4-year-old daughter. So even as me as a parent for the kids that I have, it's different for each child in the way that I discipline, the way that I talk to them. I know when I got to be soft with them. I know when I got to be hard with them. I know with my own children. And I feel like that for movies too. Like, you kind of gauge where they're at, what they're thinking, what they're mentally able to understand. It's a little different too, because like my daughter got to go with me to set when I got my face ripped off. So she got to kind of understand, you know, this is makeup, this isn't real. You know, daddy's doing this, but it's fake. It's okay. He's fine. So for her, it was a little easier to move into this a little earlier because she was able to actually watch it happen and understand. When we're watching these movies, it's just like when we did it with daddy. You know, that's not real. Nobody's really getting hurt. Everybody's fine. It's just makeup and people pretending and having fun. So I just think when you're mentally capable to understand that, you know, it could be 3, it could be 13. I think it's really like, it depends child to child on what they're ready for.
Very good. No, I completely get that. Cody, do you have a guideline or any kind of ideal spectrum in mind of like, we're going to start with this, or are you just straight going into, yeah, if you want to watch a Serbian film, we'll watch a Serbian film. That's fine. That's cool.
No, definitely not. I don't even watch a Serbian film. But no, I mean, every kid's different within each household, but also outside. Like, I had people ask me that question a lot, like, what age? And I'm like, you know your kid better than I do. So, you know, every kid's a little different. Every kid is, even what to start them with. You know, like my girls really took to slashers, but they didn't quite get into the monster stuff so much. Like, I tried to watch Abigail with them, and my youngest was a little hesitant, and she's seen way crazier shit than Abigail. So just certain subjects, clowns. I mean, you never know what's going to be like kind of there. Like, no, I don't know. I'm not ready for that. So it really just depends. I probably pushed my son maybe a little sooner than he was ready, just because I was so anxious to finally have kids to share stuff with, where, you know, drop and give me 20. What's the killer in the original Friday the 13th? Wrong. Give me 10 more. You know, so I was real anxious to kind of push him into it. But the girls, it was just kind of, they just kind of got interested and sat down. Same way that I did. You know, my dad was watching Child's Play 3, and I just kind of peeked in. Like, what the fuck is this? And then I just sat down and just kind of got sucked into it, and then it was all over for me. So I think your kids will let you know. You know, if it's, you know, if they're 11 or 12 and they're still scared to watch Poltergeist, maybe be like, just sit down with me and let's just break through this really quick. But most of the time they're curious enough where they want to watch stuff sooner than you think they're even ready. They just want the forbidden fruit. You know, they want to taste it.
Dude, absolutely. I mean, like, that's literally what I was doing walking through Blockbuster. It was just like, oh, this cool cover. It's like, oh, it's R-rated.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to think about this. I'm going to keep this in my mind. And then you'd always go pick it up. Like, I was doing that constantly. And like, honestly, like, my dad was so cool about just letting me kind of dictate when we were going to be watching stuff. And that's the kind of stuff I'm going to subscribe to as a parent. Mm-hmm. But like, the thing that was kind of mind-blowing is like my aunt, so his sister, totally the opposite. She was like, we got to stick to, this is PG-13, you're not watching it till you're 13 kind of thing. And I'm just like, how could you do that? Like, as a cinema lover, as someone who's like a movie fan, I'm like, you can't do just whatever it is. So it's like, it's kind of wild that there will be people who just like live on different sides of that aisle. Luke,
and it also
go.
depends on which, again, every kid's different. You kind of have to know how smart your kid is about not repeating certain things.
Yeah.
And like my two daughters, I was very confident that they were not going to get me in trouble. My son was the world's worst, where I would let him watch Austin Powers or something, and I'm like, dude, do not repeat anything. And he's literally like, the next day he's at the pool with his grandma, and he's like, machine gun jibblies, and he would like jump in, and I'm like, dude, the fuck. And so that's the other thing you got to be careful about. You know, they're going to go to school and parrot some stuff that they saw or something that they heard, and you're like, yeah, sorry about that.
Dude, I just picture Cody telling his son, like, hey, don't say this, and as he's sitting there with a notebook, like writing down all his favorite quotes from the movie.
That's exactly how he was, dude. It was so much like I mean, even he's gotten better here lately, but even as like, you know, when he's 14 or 15, that whole like, I will get caught eventually, like, hasn't quite sunk in. So as a kid, it was terrible. You just rattle off all this stuff, and I'm like, dude, you're killing me.
Dude, I would quote stuff like Tommy Boy was one where it's like, I love that movie. I love that. Joe Dirt. Like, I was watching those kind of comedies.
Yeah.
And like, I would just quote whatever because my dad loved it. He would get a kick out of the fact that I'm like quoting these movies and I could just know it off the top of my head. I don't remember specifically what it was. I think it was something from Stripes that I ended up saying. And like, he was just like, hey, you can't say that. Like, at your age, you can't talk like that. Like, we have to not do that. Because I didn't know any better. I'm just like, my dad likes this. This makes him laugh. I know movies. Like, I'm cool. You know, so that was the big one for me.
My poor grandmother, man. She was the one that I would like, I would swindle into letting me say something from a movie. I'd be like, man, can I tell you something that was in this movie? It's really bad, but I'll whisper it. And no, you can't do that. I'm like, please. And I would just hammer it home. And she'd be like, fine, but don't tell anybody I let you say this. And I'd be like, don't fuck with the Chuck. So many times I did that to her, that poor woman.
One of the times too for me was when Snakes on a Plane was coming out. Like I said, creature feature fan, wanted to see that so bad. My dad was getting so much shit from all of our family members about me wanting to go see it. I didn't end up going to the theater to see it. I was bummed out, but I finally got to watch it on DVD, and my aunt was like, I guess now it was probably interrogation, but I was just like, she's like, do you even know what was going on in that movie? I'm like, yeah, they gave the snakes a bunch of cocaine and they went crazy. And I'm like, because I didn't know cocaine, pheromones. I was like, they made them go crazy. I don't know what I'm saying. And she's like, you're letting your son watch snakes on cocaine eating people in a plane. And he's like, that's not what the movie's about. Like, he's like, I think back and I'm like, I probably put my dad in a lot of awkward situations with family members with all the stuff that he let me get away with. And it's like, not even like he was letting me watch anything that was too crazy, but like, yeah, as a kid, you just don't think about it. You're just happy to be a part of the journey and getting to do it. I love it. Luke, was there anything that like on your mind and in your head of just like, what am I going to start with? What am I going to do with Ella? Am I going to be very strict? Knowing you, I think you're going to be extremely strict. So,
oh yeah, she's not watching until she's 18 is what's going on. Now, you know, I think it's just too hard to put a guideline on that. I grew up with horror movies on rotation. That was always the go-to in my household. So I was always immersed, I guess, you know, in the horror genre. So, you know, to put an age on that, to be like, hey, you can't watch this. Can't watch Ernest Scared Stupid until you're 5 years old, you know. It's just one of those things where when she takes an interest, which I'm assuming probably sooner rather than later, just because of so many horror things around the house, that you know, I'll let her watch. I saw Friday the 13th when I was very young, and I was completely infatuated with just the design of Jason Voorhees. So, you know, I'm gonna let her make that decision, and whenever she takes an interest in it, hey, dear old dad's here to guide you in the filmography of horror. So, you know, I just think every kid is different. Like everyone said, it's one of those things where, you know, you have to sit them down, you know, understand, hey, this is make believe. It's nothing real. Hey, I own the masks. If you want to take a look at them, you know, they're just right here. You can buy them. You know, same thing with I'm a fan of pro wrestling. So it's kind of, you know, growing up and you let your kids watch that because they're going to do wrestling moves or anything like that. It's kind of one of those things where you don't treat it as a dirty word and kind of just guide them and let them know about everything. And hey, they're in on the joke in a sense, you know. So when other kids aren't seeing this, and it's kind of like a secret little club, you know, in school or something like that. So, you know, I think, you know, when she takes an interest, hey, let's do it. You know, we'll watch all the Friday 13th in succession there. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I don't think you know, putting an age on it just seems so trivial because everyone's so different.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I'm really happy that we're all on the same page there. I was hoping that knowing you guys, well, first time meeting you, Cody, but knowing Ken, I was like, I think the three of us here will at least be like, okay, this is cool. We're not gonna have anybody being like, no, strict guidelines, just like my aunt. You can't watch shit until you're older.
3 years
let-
old, hard, right
Let
there.
me go against the grain here. What are you guys talking about? Come on.
Gotta have.
I
That,
do gotta say though, like honestly, there are obviously exceptions to the rule because I personally, even at 38, don't watch movies that are very hard on the essay stuff.
Oh
So,
yeah,
yeah.
that's not
I'm
my
not-
bag either.
Certain
Yeah.
subject matter, I'm certain, like with my girls, especially if there's like a lot of sexual type content, I'm always like, I don't know. A certain limit on the violence. Like I came home from, I don't know if I was in the gym or something, and I came home and my 13-year-old was like, I watched some movie while you were gone, and I'm like, what'd you check out? And she's like, something with a clown, and I was like, oh, It. And she goes, no, and I was like, Terrifier, and she goes, yeah, 2, and I was like, oh fuck.
Oh,
that was one where I was like, you snuck one past me. I wouldn't have let you watch that one, but
yeah. Yeah, like
Yeah.
my kids haven't seen Terrifier 2. And like we were joking earlier about a Serbian film, but even stuff like that, like absolutely no shot in hell. My kids, I would let them watch something like that, you know, because
exactly.
and that's just me because I don't watch that. So that's kind of the guideline I
Yeah.
have. If it's something that makes me uncomfortable, I'm probably not going to let my kids sit and watch it. My son was just watching this TV show, and I can't tell you what it's called. And he was like, Dad, you need to watch this. Dad, you need to watch this. And then I went and picked him up, him and a couple of his buddies from football practice. And he was like, Dad, they started getting really SAE in the movie or in this TV show. It's about like some, I can't remember what he said, like some barkeep, and like this girl gets obsessed with him and starts like, and then some gay guy drugs him and SAs him. And my son's like, yeah, I stopped watching it, Dad. I really don't think it's something that you're going to end up liking. I'm sorry. I was like, well, I thank you for telling me before I got immersed in it, you know? So
yeah, I know exactly. I think you're talking about Baby Reindeer.
Baby Reindeer. That is 100%.
My wife binge watched that entire thing. She likes those kind of dark psychological kind of like what's going on with this sort of stuff. But I'm right there with you guys. Like anything with like essay and stuff like that, it makes it really like I feel like it sucks the fun out of what I like about horror and film and stuff. It's like I get that we can go a little bit darker with things, so we can kind of show the darker side of humanity, and like there's a lot of art that does that really well. But like I think like especially when it's something you're showing your son or you're introducing to them, it's like they're gonna find that stuff. They're going to experience, like hopefully not experience it themselves, but they're gonna watch stuff and experience what that's like. So it's like you got to kind of decide, I want to show you the enjoyable stuff. Like that's at least what I subscribe to. So like, yeah, we'll watch Jason smack people against a tree in a sleeping bag. But yeah, if you're going to watch the movie, like one that got me, and it's not even like harsh on screen, is like the movie Room with Brie Larson. Great movie. Really well done. Can't watch it again. Too sad. Just too much like they imply too much. It's like, no, not for me, man.
Well,
so you really got to pick.
As a father, that was a proud moment for me when he was like, Dad, they got into this stuff, so I know you're not going to like it. So it's like the things I've been telling you are really sinking in there.
Oh,
you
yeah.
Know, when I don't think you're listening, you really are. Because like we've had that conversation before about how that stuff makes Dad very uncomfortable because of things that have happened with my sister. So watching that type of stuff is something that I just, again, I'm not saying you're wrong if you like it. Because a lot of people think that when I say that I'm against it, that they're like, oh, Ken thinks you're gross if you like this. No. I know people that have gone through that, and they watch movies like that and they live vicariously through those characters and the rape revenge stuff and essay revenge stuff. Sorry, YouTube. And they live vicariously through that, and they get a satisfaction out of it. And if you can do that, awesome. It's an art form, and if it's for you, that's great. It's just not for me. Like I've witnessed it, and I've had to hold someone's hand while they've had to do things they didn't want to do, and it's not for me. And it hurts me to watch these type of things. So,
no, absolutely. Well, to kind of segue out of the harsher side of this, I wanted to kind of go to some more traditional Father's Day stuff. Just a little a fun rattle off a few things here. Obviously, there's a few of us who are foodies. I know Cody, you like to cook, and you got a lot of aspirations for that. But I'll kind of kick things back around here. whether it's going out to eat or staying in and making something, Ken, what's your ideal meal on Father's Day? What's the thing you look forward to the most?
I'm blessed, man. Ashley does literally, she caters to me on Father's Day. So it's usually a morning breakfast of steak and eggs. And then dinner, her and I will do hamburgers together. Just because I'm with Cody. I love to be in the kitchen. I love to cook. And when we cook burgers, the way that we do it is we get everything into a bowl. And then we put the peppers, jalapenos, everything in with the meat. And then we patty it up so it's all cooked inside the meat. And then we cook it that way. And it's just something that Ash and I have always done together. So that's kind of our Father's Day. Our Father's Day is usually pretty mapped out. It's like steak and eggs in the morning, watching Creep Show, spending the day with the kids, hamburgers at night, and then going to bed. You know, it's pretty usually a pretty chill day for us. And I throw the Tigers in there usually too, because I'm usually watching the Tigers, but they're like 1-25 on Father's Day. So I try to in my lifetime of watching. So that's one game that I just kind of check up on. But usually baseball, hamburgers, Creep Show. That's usually my Father's Day.
There you go. Can't beat that. Cody, do you cook or do you go out on Father's Day? What's your main goal there?
It's complicated because I like the relaxation side of eating out, but I'm such a fucking snob because I cook so well that I feel like everywhere I go now to eat, almost I'm always disappointed. I'm like, I can do this better. So we don't really eat out too often. If we do, it's this Mexican restaurant that's local that's pretty awesome. So if we're eating out, that's probably where I'm going. If we're staying in, I'm probably going along the same lines. I'm probably making like carne asada tacos or something like that. Whatever I feel like, really. But 8 out of 10 times, I'm usually cooking. You know, my wife always offers to take us out or anything like that. It just depends on my mood. But I'd rather put in a little work and be extremely happy with my meal than to go pay $70-$80 to take the whole family out and being like, this sucks.
No, I feel that. That's awesome. I kind of anticipated that you'd be staying in and cooking because I know that's a huge part of your personality and stuff and where I know you kind of been hinting towards it, flirting around doing a cooking channel. So I'm kind of hoping for that. I'd love to learn some Cody Leach recipes there.
It'll happen for sure. It's just a matter of timing. I'm a little nervous about opening a third channel because I have a video game channel that I neglect the hell out of because there's just no video game releases the last 2 years, it seems.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that eventually will happen for sure. I think I'll have a lot of fun with that. It'll be a nice change of pace.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. And Luke, what's some food or cooking out or eating out or cooking at home? What do you prefer on Father's Day?
I think I usually eat in most of the time. Just kind of outside options are usually pretty limited for me, and there's usually not too much to like. So, but unfortunately, I do most of the cooking. So usually it's me cooking, but my wife does make a pretty awesome. She's a baker, so it's the chocolate chip banana bread. So hey, if she makes that on Father's Day, and that's how I can end my night, I'll say I'll take it. So usually, for me, don't really care too much about the meal, whatever we're kind of feeling. I don't have anything specific, but I got to have my chocolate chip banana bread to end the day, or else I will be a very cranky person. So
I'm extremely intrigued about this chocolate chip banana bread. That sounds delicious.
I will send you some, Ken. It'll hold up in the mail. I've done it before.
There you go. I'm a little bit more basic than you guys. I like to go to places like Texas Roadhouse. A good steakhouse is fine with me. Mostly for the what do they call them? The Texas cheese fries. I don't know why. I just can't get enough of those. I love them. I actually recreated them at home, and my wife said they turned out pretty good. So I might do that this year. But for me, I think there's one spot that my wife and I just bond over a lot. It's called a local place called The Rail. It's a burger place, but like they make really great, just like burgers that like they're always trying to do something different with them. So it's like you can get a basic hamburger, it's really great, but like there's one that I get there called the I think it's the Roadhouse burger or something there, and I love it. They just put all the onions and everything on it. It's just really, really well done, and I always look forward to going out and doing something like that. But mostly I would say for Mother's Day and Father's Day, my wife, the last 2 years, we go to breakfast. We go to like find a nice little local breakfast spot, like a diner, and we just go there because it's like nothing beats pancakes and stuff in the morning, at least in our house. So gotta love that. Going into another one there for you. for any of the like soon to be fathers or people who are kind of like, about to step into that world or maybe are still new to that world, what is some advice that you guys would give to dads? Like whether it be, hey, live by this, or whether it just be like, take everything day by day. Like what is just some basic advice you would give to anybody who's kind of stepping into the realm or the role of father? And
Well, first off, I got to say, like, I would never tell anybody how to parent. Never, ever, ever, ever. But if somebody was asking for my advice, listen. Yes, there are children. Yes, it's our job to guide them. It's our job to give them advice. I personally am a believer in Jesus Christ. I'm not Christian. I'm not Catholic. I think religion is a joke. But I do personally believe that. I've never once told my kids they do. I want them to discover everything on their own, whether it be religion, whether it be politics, whether, whatever. So the biggest thing I would say is listen, guide them, but don't tell them this is what you are. This is who you are. I'm this way, so you're this way. I don't know. Again, this is maybe the super liberal Ken coming out, but I just want my kids to love and enjoy and be themselves and be happy. And that's what I feel like is our jobs. Yes, we're dad. Yes, we're underappreciated. Yes, we're overworked. Yes, we're the mean disciplinarian ones. But I know there's never been a millisecond of time that they've been on this planet that they've ever felt like my dad doesn't love me. My dad won't be there. My dad, they know. Even when I'm at my meanest with them, I have expectations. You're not meeting them and you need to be. Mm-hmm. And even in those moments, they know dad loves me and he's doing what's best for me. And my job is to make sure that when I'm gone, I can rest easy knowing I did my job well enough to know they're okay. So the biggest piece of advice I could give is just love, listen, and understand. They're going to be who they are, whether we like it or not. The biggest thing my kids could kill somebody and I'd beat them upside the head the whole time I was burying the body, telling them how fucking stupid they were. Like, there's nothing you can do that I won't have your back. But
you didn't wear gloves, you fucking idiot.
Yeah.
God damn.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to have your back no matter what. I'm your dad. No matter what, I made you. I created you, and I'm going to love you, and I'm going to have your back no matter what, even if I don't agree with it. 100% think it's the most ludicrous thing ever. I will follow you, but I'm going to let you know, come on, you can do a little better than that. So that's the biggest piece of fatherly advice I could give. But again, I want to preface that with every child's different. What works with my children may not work with yours. So, I would hate to tell someone you're parenting wrong. That to me is the biggest insult. I'd rather you spit in my face than tell me that. So I would never tell somebody that they do or do not parent the best way or the worst way, because that's despicable to me.
No, that's very solid. I like that a lot. Cody, what is some advice that you would give to an up-and-coming father?
Well, I agree wholeheartedly with Ken on the notion of not telling other people how to parent. I kind of feel like we're all figuring this out. There's no rule book. My way is not 100% right. Ken's way is not 100% right. We all make mistakes, and that's just how it goes. You just got to hope you're doing your best and learn from the mistakes that you find out that you make. Hopefully there's not permanent damage there. But my advice is going to tailor more towards just the father themselves, because I feel like we could all probably agree with this. I know my biggest thing as a father that keeps me up at night is this constant thought that I'm not doing enough, whether it's not spending enough time with the kids, not doing enough to provide, not working enough, whatever it may be. There's very rarely a night where I set my head on the pillow and I'm like, I did enough today. There's always something where I'm like, fuck, I could have done this. And the advice I'll give is just to try not to be so hard on yourself, because that gets wearing after a while. There was times where before I went full time where I was working, 40 to 60 hours on an average week, exhausted, plus doing YouTube, then trying to do homework and provide dinner. And I was giving more than 100% of myself away to everybody else and none for myself, and still felt like I wasn't doing enough. And that eventually is just going to take somebody out. So there's that. And also just, I don't want to contradict myself as far as telling people how to parent, but I know there's a lot of more modern things going on now with gentle parenting and always being nice and being your kid's friend and everything. And, take that approach if you want. But I would say the most important thing that you can do as a father is you have to prepare your kids for the world.
Yes.
You have to prepare them for what's going to happen. You can love them, you can be friendly with them, you can be gentle with them, but the world is not going to be. So you have to prepare them for that. The world is not going to give a fuck about their feelings. Their employer is not going to give a fuck about their feelings. And so I really try to do that more so with my son. I'm a little more gentle with my daughters, of course. That's just kind of the nature of the beast. But like, you know, for example, maybe I think it was 2 years ago, some kid snapped him in the eye in gym class with like, you know, doing like a whip thing with a little jersey, and my son punched the kid in the face in return, and both of them got suspended for the same amount of time, which is not fair in my opinion. But that's how schools do it nowadays. They're like, if you both touched each other, you're both equally guilty, even if somebody instigated it and the entire class says that it wasn't his fault, it doesn't matter. And so I told my son, I'm like, this is your first lesson of how the world is. Even doing the right thing sometimes is the wrong thing and will fuck you over. So you're not in trouble with me. Enjoy your 3-day vacation. Let's go check out this movie, and to hell with everybody at your school. And if that kid does it again, you have my permission to kick the shit out of him. But this is how the world is going to go. So to me, that's very important. You know, be as gentle as you want, be as strict as you want, but the world is not going to be gentle.
There's that balance there. You know, like I said, like as fathers, we are the disciplinarians. Like it's our job to, like you said, you worded it perfect. Our job is to get them ready for the real world. You know, no matter how soft we are, they get out there and they're speeding. A cop isn't going to be soft on them and write them a softer ticket because you're somebody's baby boy. You know, so you're right. It's our job to make sure they know once you get out there, I can't help you anymore. Yeah. Yeah. Or even just, you know, showing up on time for something. You know, that's another thing that I'm strict about. Like you said, you were going to be up and you were going to get this done at 8. It's now 9. I understand things happened. I can sympathize with you because I live with you. When you get into the real world, you're going to have 1 or 2 chances of giving some bullshit excuse, and then you're just going to be dispensed of. Nobody cares.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's awesome advice from both of you there. I think like that's very grounded, realistic stuff too. Cause like, yeah, I think that at this moment in time, both Luke and I, our kids are still so young that it's like we're just still figuring out like their little personalities and stuff like that. And just kind of they're absorbing so much that it's like you guys are on the different side of it where your kids are older. So it's like the life lessons you provide to them, you actually can see transpire, and like they're dealing with the public in a big sense. I like the angle of like talking about like employers and stuff too, because like that's something that you know, my dad always gave me a very like strict kind of, you know, you have a job, your job is to go to school, you know, you got to make sure you're putting your best foot forward and doing that. And that kind of went forward with me with like work and stuff like that, trying to give yourself you know, 100% of yourself where it matters, where it counts. And, you know, I really respect that. One of the things too, I wanted to touch on is, yeah, that whole school thing is bullshit. I was on the receiving end of that. This was even a little bit worse. I didn't even punch the kid. I was walking out of math class. One of my buddies, I was walking out, I think like up the stairs the day prior with my buddy John. He bumped into some kid who was a hothead. Everybody knew it. He thought that I did it, I guess, because I'm walking out of math class with headphones on, and kid like pushes me up against the locker, and like he's like, oh, he's like, you shoulder checked me or whatever. And then I was just like, dude, like I didn't do shit, like get off me or whatever. He spocks me in the face like 3 times. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Get broken up. I get in school suspension 3 days. He gets expelled or whatever. So it's just like, why am I in trouble? I'm like literally sitting against a locker. I didn't even touch the kid.
Yeah, but it's such bullshit. I went right to the school the next day and sat down, and I was like, explain to me like how this is a thing. Like I understand if it's a he said, she said scenario and you have to be fair because you can't pick favorites. Literally the entire class and the teacher and the security footage that you told me that you saw corroborates my son's story. So what the fuck are we doing? And luckily I didn't get too heated because I could tell this woman 100% agreed with me, but her hands were tied. It's just that's the way the rules are nowadays. They don't want to get sued. They don't want the parent of the asshole that started it to start you know, throwing their hands up or whatever. And so I didn't get as heated as I wanted to, but you know, I just took it as a learning experience for my son, where I'm like, it's horse shit, but here's the deal. I'm gonna tell you the same thing that my dad said to me. You defend yourself. I don't care what the school says. You're never in trouble at home.
Yep. And that was 100%. The best part. Was I was so worried. Like I told my dad afterwards, I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I didn't like fight back or anything, but like I was so worried, like, am I gonna get in trouble with you and stuff like that? And he was literally just like, dude, like if a kid ever lays his hands on you like that, he's like, you hit him back. He's like, you will not get in trouble with me. You hit him back. And I was just like, awesome, cool. So I knew, and I was a freshman. Didn't get in any other fights throughout my high school career, so I never got to do that. But you know, hey, it was great to know if I get punched in the face again, I'm good to just let it all out. So that's always nice. So
what my grandma told me, she took it even a step further than my dad did. My dad was just like, "You're never in trouble for defending yourself." My grandma was like, "You're never in trouble for defending yourself, but if you sit there and take it, I'll kick your ass."
That's such a grandma thing to say too.
Yep.
I love that.
And then this one again, I want to throw this to you guys. You brought it up a little bit, Cody, there with the kind of work-life balance. This kind of question kind of goes towards creators. Are there any advice that you guys would give for people who are kind of in our situation where, you know, you're trying to balance being a content creator or maybe a filmmaker, maybe just trying to follow your passion, but also being a parent, making sure that you're giving enough attention to all sides? Because Luke and I are in the exact same situation that you were in, Cody, where it's like we're working 40 hours a week and you know, we're doing this, but we're also parenting, we're also cooking dinner, just trying to find enough time to vacuum the house at some point or do something, keep up with that. Like what is some advice you guys would give? I'll start with Ken on this one.
I'm the same way. I manage an auto parts store, so I'm working 60 hours a week. We're putting out 5 videos a week, and we're still parents. I never miss a dance class. I never miss a football game. I never stopped coaching baseball. Family first. You know what I mean? Like, we schedule days off. We schedule weeks off. That's why we'll do, 2 to 3 reviews a week and 2 to 3 my first horror movies a week, and then we'll take a week off. That way we know that we're still getting that family time. Our kids know after we're done with the interview, after we're done with the review, after we're done with the podcast, then you're ours all night. We will do whatever you want to do. Don't miss out on what the kids' stuff won't replay. You can always set a date for another podcast. You can always set a date for another review, but I won't get to see my son he's a junior this year. Last year, he's a 2-time state wrestling champion. He won states as a freshman and as a sophomore. I was there for both times he got his rings. Yeah. I couldn't get those back if I didn't. So, the family stuff is always the most important to me because you can't get those times back. So that would be my biggest piece of advice. If you got to choose between reviewing Fright Night or going to your daughter's ballet recital, Fright Night can wait a day. Yeah, ballet can't.
Very good, very good. And Cody, what's some advice for you there?
Yeah, I mean, it's easier said than done. It just all comes down to time management. If you could find a day or an afternoon to batch record a bunch of stuff to kind of set yourself up for the week, that way you free yourself up other days, and the kids just understand, like, this afternoon is off limits. I'm busy. If time allows, if your schedule allows, do some recording or do your editing at night when they're asleep, so you're not actually missing out on any time with them. That was something that I always had to do a lot whenever I was before I was full-time, but even now I tried to record before they get off school, and I try to edit and do live streams and everything like that as they're going to bed. Like, most times when people, hey, you want to do a live stream? I'm like, can we do it at like 8:30 p.m. after that? Because their heads hit the pillow, then I'm good. But yeah, what Ken was talking about there about, don't take the stuff for granted when they're little, especially, because you'll blink and those days are gone forever, and it won't hit you until later on, and then you'll hate yourself for it because you'll never get that back. I mean, there was a number of times with the older two where they had something at school that didn't seem like a big deal, and so I was like, we're busy, I got to go do something, not necessarily YouTube, but whatever it was, I was busy doing something else. And so there was a number of things that I missed that might not have been a big deal to them, but I never really sat and talked with them about it. But then there was a time where I think it was a Christmas party, my youngest daughter in her kindergarten class, where I was busy, but I was like, I'll go. So I set aside time to go, and I showed up, and the way her face lit up that I showed up contrasted with the look on the kids' faces that didn't have a parent there broke my heart. And I was like, I'm an asshole if this was my kids before. Like, it just got something about the look on one kid's face where the whole table but him had a parent there, and he just looked defeated. Even though it was just a little 45-minute Christmas party that doesn't seem like a big deal, it was to them. And so really keep that in mind. And ever since that day, I haven't missed a single thing. I don't care what it is. I don't care if they're running through soap bubbles in the yard or whatever little event they're doing. If parents are welcome, I'm there, because you don't understand the value of showing up until you show up.
That's honestly
you talk
great.
about blink and you'll miss it. My son's driving. You know what I mean? Like my
Yeah.
son is 16 now. So like you're right. Like before you know it, they're gone.
Mhm.
I have maybe 2 years left where I have him, and that I've had him longer than I have him. Like, and that's a scary, scary thought. So I agree. Like those things that may not seem like they mean a lot, like just showing up, just being there, so special to your kids.
I love it. I appreciate that. That definitely, I think, is good to hear, and I think that's great advice. I think like putting family first. Everybody says it, but you got to put it in practice too, because I mean that's something that Luke and I have had to learn, like from day one when we said we're going to take this serious, we're going to put our hearts into it, we're going to try. There have been plenty of days where we have to call it. We have to be like, hey, especially when our son and our daughter were teething. It's like not having a good night. This video is going to have to wait. Like we're going to have to pull it. Like I got to do this, or one of us who's free, you're going to have to solo this. And like, that's what it is. Cause like you got to put them first. And I think like what makes my day every day is when I see my son for the first time, whether I'm picking him up at my mother-in-law's because she babysits, or whatever after work, and just seeing how like much he lights up whenever I walk through the door. I'm like, I must be doing something right. So it's like, as long as I keep getting that reaction, I know it'll change as I get older, but I'm like, as long as that's still where I'm headed, I'm doing the best I can. So that's the gauge I try to live by, at least in my small career as a father here. Luke, as we're kind of wrapping up here, do you have any final Father's Day questions for the guys here?
No, nothing specifically. I think, just going through everything and thinking about, trying to balance the creating content and, being a dad. It's a pesky little task, I think, trying to get through it. But it's one of those things where I always look at Ella, and she's got this activity cube. It's just made out of wood, and you open these doors, and she always stands by it, and she's always watching TV. I'm going through the Disney catalog as we speak, and I always sit a little bit behind her, and she always she watches the same things in rotation. So we have like Moana, Turning Red, Inside Out, all the basics, and it's just being there and just being present, because it's one of those things where I'm in the room and I've noticed that she loves everything on TV, and we've seen the same thing over and over, but she will do this thing where she looks back and she's got this big smile on her face, like, hey, did you just see Maui in his hook? And it's like, yeah, I've seen it, but it's like, it means the world to her, and for me to kind of be there and also enjoying the things that she's doing. And it's one of those things. We do a live stream, bi-weekly live stream, and it starts at 9, and anytime, depending on what her schedule is, I never miss bedtime. So it's if we're on, I have to take a break, because she's we read a book and do a little dance for her every night, and she just absolutely enjoys it. She goes crazy for it. So it's like one of those things where trying to balance this type of stuff and get the content out and also be there for the kids. It's tough to balance, but just being present and being there. So no real questions. I just think it's one of those things where we're on the same boat, and no matter how long you've been doing it, how short you've been doing it, how long you've had children, it's always going to be one of those learning curves where it's something new, there's a new obstacle, so it's going to be an exciting time, certainly.
Absolutely. But I think that's going to wrap us up here for this. Thank you guys for stopping by the channel, of course, and thank you for watching. Obviously, Ken, if you want to let the folks know where they can find you and what you got coming up.
You could find us at social media anywhere at Sledgehammer Horror, Twitter at Sledgehammer Horror, HOR, YouTube at Sledgehammer Horror. Father's Day, we have our Creep Show review coming out. And besides that, we just reviewed a bunch. Summer of '84, Property, Grandma's Cookies. And Ashley, starting in July, is doing her own solo segment called Villain of the Month, where she picks a villain, they're the villain of the month, and she goes through a whole list of things from this villain and what made them the villain of the month. So that will start in July. It'll be a monthly thing.
Awesome. And Cody, what do you got going on over there?
So I'm a little more fly by the seat of my pants, so I can't give too many specifics on videos. But if you're watching this on Father's Day, I should be reviewing the Bike Riders. That should be the most next, the most about to come out new release after Father's Day. And then I might try to do some kind of a ranking, like maybe I'll rank my dad's favorite movies or something like that. That'd be a cool idea. But
That's a good one.
I kind of, one of the beauties of being full time, I kind of map myself out and then I pull audibles all month long. So we'll see.
I love it. But yeah, other than that, guys, we got a lot of great stuff on the channel. We're recording this super early, so who knows what we're going to be talking about. There will probably be a handful of indie films that have dropped that we've gotten screeners for. So keep an eye out on the channel. We got a lot of fun stuff there. I know I have a Scenes That Scarred Us coming up where I'm talking about Sinister, so that should probably be up already. But alrighty, guys, it's going to wrap us up here. So until next time, I'm Dylan Newell.
I'm Ken Sledge.
I'm Cody Leach.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.
Do the hard shit, gonna do it live. Cause Splattercast kick it every day they live. Splattercast, gonna slash your ass. 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 Splattercast, gonna slash your ass.